Hey, what's up, y'all? Good afternoon and welcome to the GI Justin channel. I want to thank you guys for showing up. I have some crazy stuff to talk to you about again today. Biggest thing, center stage for me right now is it seems like that doomsday clock they keep talking about that's going to signal the end of humankind. It looks like just ticked over another minute because we are just getting even closer to, in my opinion, the beginning of the end for us as a race. World War III is just inching closer and closer and closer, and we are apparently powerless to do anything about it as a country. So basically, this is a topic that I've been following really closely because both as a veteran military guy and a guy who likes to be prepared for all situations, this one looks like it is a pretty big deal and could be the beginning of the end for us, especially as a nation, considering some of the situations going on in our own military. And I've talked about that in a previous episode that if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to go back and check out, where I was talking about how short our military is on soldiers and pilots. And it seems like with the way this war is looking like it's going to shape up for us, that's some things that we may need a lot more of. I don't know how we're going to manage, but it's really interesting right now. So what's going on right now? The Chinese military is basically preparing to attack Taiwan, and we have told them in no uncertain terms that we will defend Taiwan's right to sovereignty by whatever means necessary, up to and including our own military. So basically the response to that from the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs basically said that we're heading for a conflict and confrontation due to our American policy. And I think in my mind, with Russia being much less powerful than they ever were, this becomes more of an existential crisis like Rocky IV style, where it's just us versus Drago. It's America versus, this huge superpower where they couldn't be more different than us and we couldn't be more different than them. And all we are doing is emboldening their ability to do these things that they're doing. We're seeing China become more outlandish, more aggressive, and much more of a world power on a world stage than we used to. So this guy that made these comments is brand new to his post. His name is Qin Jiang, and in his first press conference, he accused the U.S. of pushing for the destruction of Taiwan by instigating tensions between the island and the mainland. So basically, we are selling them all manner of military assets. We are teaching them how to use these military assets, many of which are in a highly defensive nature so they can protect themselves from Chinese invasion. And they basically, part of his entire point was to ask, why does the U.S. keep professing that it wants to maintain peace within the region and stability within the region while covertly formulating this plan to protect Taiwan because we are forwarding them a whole bunch of our assets? Why would we be doing that if we wanted to keep the area peaceful and stable? Is basically the question that he's making. He goes on even further. If the United States does not hit the brakes but continues to speed down the wrong path, no amount of guard railing can prevent derailing, and there will surely be conflict and confrontation, and who will bear the catastrophic consequences. Then he says, such competition is a reckless gamble, with the stakes being the fundamental interests of the two people and even the future of humanity. I mean, if that's not a veiled poke at World War III, what is? I mean, this guy's basically saying, you guys cut it out, or chances are real strong that you are going to be in a shooting war with us, and the end result being nuclear weapons passing each other in the sky as we basically destroy all of humanity. A little bit of background on it. So Taiwan is a small island off the coast of mainland China. And they are part of the reason why we're invested there. They are very strategically positioned both as a jump-off point into Southeast Asia if we decided to invade somewhere, because we don't really have any great footholds other than Japan and South Korea. And South Korea's got its own problems. We'll touch on that here in a minute. But they basically are just this tiny little island that has there's a company that makes semiconductors in Taiwan, oddly enough called Taiwan Semiconductor, that is very well known to have some of the best computer chips on the planet, which you think about us, that's pretty important to us. And oddly enough, their actual name is the Republic of China, which is kind of funny, you know, if you think about, you know, you're calling yourself the Republic of China. Interesting. So they basically declared themselves independent from communist China, and basically they just want to operate as their own. He's not afraid of flying right over my house right now, sir. What the heck? Air Force guys, man, no respect at all. Making an episode here, sir. I don't know. Anyways, back to what we're talking about. So, where was I? Yes, history of Taiwan. So China has basically claimed sovereignty over Taiwan for a long time, and they also claim the water around Taiwan, known as the Taiwan Strait, which is a very strategic, narrow strip of ocean that is very important for shipping from Taiwan to other areas. The question really at hand is, how are we going to move forward with this? This Minister of Foreign Affairs finished up his whole thing by saying, the resolution of the Taiwan question is a matter for the Chinese people on our own, and no foreign country has the right to interfere, later adding, there seems to be an invisible hand pushing for the protraction and escalation of the conflict and using the Ukraine crisis to serve a certain geopolitical agenda. Interesting there that he brings the Ukraine war into this discussion of Taiwan. Seems like kind of an oddly placed location, especially considering that it appears fairly obvious they're interested in invading Taiwan and using the Ukraine war as a test bed. So that's my kind of, you know, get your ears up looking at that saying, wait a minute, why are you bringing Ukraine up into this? That seems very odd. And the thing I find interesting there, the parallels between the two, where you have a gigantic, powerful nation attacking a very small neighbor, obviously are there. And they're also wondering, and they've used the war in Ukraine as a piggyback to say, all right, cool. So if we invade Taiwan, how's the rest of the world going to respond to this? What is their action going to be? Are they prepared to go to war over a tiny country? Are they prepared to give everything to protect these little guys? And the answer has been, meh. We're prepared to help, but we're not prepared to do a lot. So I think that really gives them the information that they need. Now, here is where this becomes the most problematic and where I think this is a major issue worth discussion. The American intelligence community has come out saying they know as a matter of absolute fact that the Prime Minister of China has instructed the People's Liberation Army, which is the Chinese military, to be ready by 2027 to conduct a full-on successful military operation of taking Taiwan back. So it doesn't mean that they've decided that they're going to do that for sure in 2027, but it really highlights what they're doing. I mean, you don't tell a military, hey, here are your marching orders, get ready to complete this mission, without having some intent to actually do it. And I think that's what they're doing right now. They are testing for weaknesses in the Taiwanese military defense structure. So they have flown 3 times in the last 2 weeks squadrons of fighter jets through the airspace of Taiwan in an attempt to, in my mind, I mean, they're being intercepted. They know they're flying at altitude. They're not trying to sneak in. But what they're doing is looking. They're investigating the Taiwanese air response. And that is a great way to do that. What better way to gain timely and immediate intelligence on someone you plan on fighting soon than seeing how they respond when you rattle their cage? Because that's something that the Taliban used to do to us all the time. I am here to tell you, they probably had the U.S. Army operations manual on how to react to contact. These guys were so good. They would shoot at us in such a way to elicit a response that they knew was coming. And then in return, they would have a better ambush set up to react to what they already know you're going to do. And that's something that the Chinese are working on right now. Right now, they're watching the Taiwanese military respond to these invasions and coming up with their plan based on that information. And the other thing, like I was talking about before, I think, in a previous episode, China and Russia freely share a lot of technology. If you hop on Google right now and look at Chinese military aircraft, for instance. Not the ones they stole from us, because they've stolen a lot of designs from us, but a good portion of Chinese military technology is actually Russian technology. And we have, through supporting Ukraine, driven Russia into the arms of China, where they are now both absolutely dead set on the failure of America. So you will 100% have Russia assisting China to the extent that they can if they decide to complete this invasion. So, continuing along this vein, what you are looking into next is this kinetic war between NATO and us, obviously, against Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, who obviously form the kind of counterculture to freedom and goodwill in the world. It's a very scary thing because they have, like I said, a large interoperability of equipment where most of their pilots are trained on the same aircraft. Big benefits there. Maintenance is easier. You can use a Chinese guy to repair a Russian aircraft. You can use a Russian guy to repair an Iranian aircraft. North Korea, same thing. They get all of their weapons from China. So now you've got interoperability across the spectrum. All of these guys can fly each other's aircraft. Whereas you put me in an American helicopter, definitely my helicopter, and maybe some other American helicopters, I could get through it. I could make it work. They're similar. But you give me the opportunity, and a lot of guys, to fly some of these European aircraft. It's not the same. Some of these aircraft, like what I flew EMS, the rotor blades actually turn the opposite direction, which sounds like nothing, but in reality, that completely changes the way you have to manipulate the controls of the aircraft. Whereas these guys, total interoperability. North Korean guy can fly Russian equipment. Iranian guy can fly Chinese equipment. That may not sound like much, but that is a big problem. It pools their resources, both in manpower and equipment, whereas all of us are just kind of flying just our stuff unless we happen to be, partnering with like the South Koreans, who do have almost exclusively American equipment. So we've created these massive bonds between these countries where we haven't actually punished them. All we've really done is make them angry. Now, like I was saying, we touch on North Korea in this. So North Korea, now that we have a much weaker foreign policy, has begun rattling the saber against South Korea and everyone else, to the point where tensions are back to where they were probably 15 years ago, where they're absolutely one international incident short of a shooting war. So Kim Yo-jong is Kim Jong-un, the guy who's the president of North Korea. It is his sister, and she is very hardline. She wishes the absolute destruction of South Korea, and she would love nothing more than to bathe in their blood. Well, what is happening, and we're seeing it through intelligence sources, they are strengthening their bonds with China because they know if they decide they want to move south, they're going to have Chinese help, just like last time. So we're seeing these nations solidify their bonds. And there was a time where no one would mess with the United States and no one would mess with NATO, and that time may have passed. We don't show unified support for nearly anyone. Even still with Ukraine, there are still countries who've decided they really aren't interested in super supporting. They're going to provide some non-lethal stuff, maybe throw a couple dollars at them, but that's going to be it. So the big question becomes, is this going to be a World War I scenario where something like Ukraine, like Taiwan, is going to cause all of these major nations with massive alliances and all these crisscrossing alliances where countries are making deals with other countries, arms deals, trade, all these things back and forth? There's going to be some powder keg event like Taiwan that causes all of these alliances to become enacted. What happens if Russia decides to keep pushing through Ukraine into Poland? What are we going to do? Poland is a NATO member. Are we prepared to step up and fight the next world war based on all of these alliances? And will that war result in the exact same situation? Will there be just a meat grinder, millions and millions of dead, or will it result in the end of our planet? I think most people will hope that cooler heads prevail and are aware that nuclear war is pretty much bad for everybody. But with sightings of Russian submarines off of the east coast of the United States, and provocations from China, North Korea testing intercontinental ballistic missiles again, Iran sponsoring terrorism anywhere it can take hold. What are we going to do? I think the problem here is we're policemen for the universe, and we're running out of people who want to play good cop. That is very, very troubling, I think. So I want to thank you guys for watching the channel today. I hope I'm wrong with these things. You know, these are some really, really, really nightmare scenarios, and I want to thank you guys for watching and getting some more information out of this. And I hope that you have an awesome day. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate that. There's going to be a little helicopter at the bottom. Just click on that thing and subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you this kind of information. So thank you guys so much. Have an awesome day.